The fifth principle of strategic case making is to anchor and credential the solutions, not the problem. And this is, again, a really tough one for most of us who have joined social movements because there was a problem. People didn't have health care. They weren't able to send their kids to schools that were preparing them for the future. The climate, right, issues that we faced. There are these huge, raging problems that we see, and we want to build our community's capacity to solve them. So we came to the conversation to solve a problem. And so we believe that we should start there. If you want to get people to talk about these issues of climate change, you got to tell them about the problem and the thing that we're facing. And oh my God, the sky is about to fall in unless we do something right now. And it makes perfect sense, except you aren't really trying to attract another you. Sometimes when I talk to folks about this issue, I would say, right, for the folks who care about the issues that we care about because they saw a problem and they wanted to solve it and they got involved, we already got those folks. Wherever you are, look to your left, look to your right? You're probably around people who, like you, right, have leaned in because they saw a need and decided that they had some agency around being able to connect to it. Most people, lots of folks, are not like that, right? In fact, the conversation around so much of what's happening in our country today is so problem laden that it actually is crushing in terms of people's sense of mobility and agency. When you look at the nightly news, story after story after story is about crisis. The first one's going to be about some infrastructure thing that happened and the thing fell and somebody got hurt. The second one's going to be about our healthcare system and how it can't keep up with COVID. And the next one's going to be the affordable housing crisis. And oh my God, it's da-da-da. The next one's going to be about the child welfare system, which has so many kids in it, we can't da-da. The next one's going to be about issues of child welfare or some of the sexual predators and some folks who are, right, all the sex trafficking and it's story after story after story after story. And so what happens is that people can't absorb that much crisis. We can't, right? You can't live a life with any promise of an aspiration if you're constantly feeling like the world is falling in on you. And that's a part of the challenge for us as case makers. While we might have come to these circumstances because we identified the challenge, we're talking to folks who are shrinking because they are overburdened by those crises, not, right, because they're excited about them. And let me just say that differently. What I want to say about this, most people don't wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, there's so many challenges out in the world. Which one do I solve today, right? Most folks would say, listen, I already got 99 problems in my own life. I don't need another one, right? So when we communicate with folks, if your expectation is the articulation of another set of problems average everyday folks have to solve, they're not likely to want to lean forward. In fact, what happens is rather than lean forward and say, let me solve them, the opposite actually happens. People back away, right? They say, I can't solve that. Listen, I'm going to get my kids on the school bus in the morning. I'm going to go to my job. I'm going to do the best I can. And I have to leave that alone. I can't absorb that, right? They turn you off and they go to Netflix, right? Or whatever the latest thing is, because they have to disengage from that crisis. So if we want to break through some of that, we've got to take a different way to get there. The way to do that is by anchoring and credentialing the solutions. What is working? Show me what's working. Show me what I can do. Show me where it's working, how it's working, what it takes. That's a different conversation that you want to enroll people in. And let me say something else about that terminology around anchoring. Again, that's not a throwaway word. Anchoring is a specific terminology that we're using to say, when you engage in a conversation with somebody, when you drop that anchor, the first thing you engage folks about, the first thing you start the conversation anchors their thinking, right, in that conversation. You don't want to drop your anchor in a bunch of stuff that's negative, right? Think about what an anchor does. It keeps you tethered to it, keeps you stuck, right, in that place. Because what you actually are trying to communicate with folks to do is to get to the point where they're solving the problem. So if you've just anchored them in a whole set of problems and challenges, right, they're going to keep going. And in fact, if you've ever experienced this in a conversation, you talk to folks, once you start in the negative direction, they keep going. Oh yeah, let me tell you about this. Oh, and it's so bad, right? And you can't get them to turn around, right, to think about then what is the more constructive as a solution. So let's not anchor people in the thing that is problematic. Let's talk about what's possible, because we know there are a whole range of solutions on the table to solve any number of problems. That's why these issues are not technical, they're adaptive. we have those solutions. Our opportunity is to build consensus around the things that are already working and the things that we could advance in our communities to make them work even better.